morning and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Recently, Spotlight stores have stocked the Lion brand Feels Like Bliss yarn, and it has quickly evaporated because of the absolute want to work with this yarn. So I thought, why not do an honest review of it? Because I've made a few plushies, I'm going to share them with you, I'm going to go through my tips and tricks for using the yarn, and I'm also going to go through the pros and cons. So grab a cuppa, grab a snack, and let's do it. So I thought I would start off by showing you the yarn and going through a few of the specs of the yarn. So this is in the colorway Sky, and it is 100% nylon. It's 100 grams and it's 109 yards or 100 meters per ball. And it's a bulky 5. And something that confuses me about it is it recommends to use a 9mm hook. I don't know why you would use a 9mm. I think like a 7mm hook is probably the limit I would test on this yarn because it's not super thick. Maybe the 9's not for amigurumi, it's referring to wearables, but I don't know, I think 9's way too big. Anyway, so I've got a few colors. I've got this one. I've got this one in Buttercup, which has to be my favorite. I love this yellow. It's so like warm with like a, I don't know, like a pinky undertone. It's so warm, it's so soft. I love it. I've got this one. I don't know the color. I think it's blush, potentially. This is like a darker pink. All the labels have come off because I have, of course, used it. But I've got this pink, which is super pigmented and nice. I love it. This one I think is sage. Yes, sage green. I've got this orangey color. Now, when I don't compare it with the pink, the orange doesn't look orange to me. It looks more pink. But it is picking up as orange on camera. So, but yeah, this is like an orange color. I also got white and I got black. The pros of this yarn, I found that it is super slippery, which is a pro because you don't have that squeaky, like particularly if it's like a hot day and you've been working with the same yarn for quite a while on the same hook. It can get squeaky and stuck, and this doesn't, that's not an issue at all. Like I was so hot yesterday and I was crocheting away and there was no squeaking, no getting stuck, no really having to work through stitches, which was really good. I guess I'll go into these later, but it can be a bit of a con because it's so slippery that it just can slide right off the hook. So you've got to be really careful. Another pro is that it's super durable. Like it looks like it should be quite flimsy, right? But doing magic circles and like pulling it, no issues with it snapping at all. And like, that's something that happens to me all the time. But yeah, no, it doesn't snap. And I think it's because if you look really closely at the fibers, they're like braided. It probably won't pick up on camera, but it's braided. So it's quite durable. And I love that. The next pro was it hides messy sewing well. So I make a lot of Della ducks and I make things where you've got to sew pieces on. And I'm a crocheter first. I'm a sewer second. I, like many people, don't like sewing, which is why there's such a craze around no-sew patterns. You can sew things on really well and they can look a bit messy, but you would not know in this yarn because it's hidden. It's also very forgiving if you like skip a stitch or do something a bit different with the pattern or, yeah, you can't tell, basically. So I love that. The cons. So one of the cons I had, and I might show you, give me a second. I got my little scissors. One of the cons that I had, I might try it with the green might be easy, is when I cut it to then, so just how I cut the end to then weave it in and thread it through my needle. Oops, it splits. So it is quite splitty. So you got to just be careful with the splitting. It can do this. So my tip would be when you cut it to then like make it even so you can thread it, I just cut it and then I group it really close together with my fingers and thread that way. I mean, some people wet it, but yeah, just to be wary of that. It does split. It separates quite easily. Like I can go like this. And it's like, it's 2 strands that split. So just be careful of that. The other thing is it's quite pricey. So the reason I think it sold out so quickly in Australia was it was an unbelievably cheap price. So I had a look, I did some research and I looked on the Lion brand website. And if you're in America, correct me if this is incorrect, but from what I could see, the Feels Like Bliss yarn on the Lion brand website is selling for $8.99 USD. In Australian, that is $12.70. And that's quite pricey for one ball of yarn, I must say. So at Spotlight, they were selling it for $6 Australian, which is let me just do my little calculator here, $4.25 USD. So quite a bit cheaper than the Lion Brand website. So although the price was a pro in my case because it was a lot cheaper, it is quite pricey if you're paying full price. So just keep that in mind and maybe only buy 1 or 2 balls to start off with and see if you actually like working with it before committing to getting all the colours, because that's very tempting as they are so cool. Back to my Word document. So yeah, quite pricey. The other thing is, if you're a beginner, I would not recommend it. You've got to feel the stitches, not see them. So if you look really closely, you can kind of see the stitches, but I was crocheting by feeling the stitches. So you can't rely on being able to see them. Also, try not to be too distracted when you're crocheting, because I personally would not be able to count back and count the row and see what I've done, if that makes sense. Like usually if I'm doing something, I'm like, oh, did I do too many increases or too many this? I'll go back on the round and count them. You can't really do that with this yarn because you can't really see it. I mean, you could feel it, but my top tip to just avoid the headache of having to try and figure things out is just try to really keep focused. And like, if you stop for any reason or like you're taking a break from the pattern, just write down exactly where you're up to, because you can't rely on going back and counting the stitches. And then the other con is things turn out smaller, which is to be expected. It's a much thinner yarn than a standard chenille or blanket yarn. So in saying that, you're doing the same, if not more, amount of work because of the complexity of the yarn, but the end product is smaller. And I haven't sold any of the products I've made yet, so I don't know what price point they will go for and if that price point will be acknowledged and recognized for the type of yarn it is. I'll show you the things that I've made and then I'll go through some of my tips for working with the yarn. This is the number one thing I wanted to make when I saw this yarn. They're the fuzzy bees. How adorable. I've added some blush and I did a pink one and then I did like your standard one. I'm going to make so many of these. I'm thinking of making like 18 of them for my work friends, literally 18. That's how many people are in my team, and just gifting them to them because I think they're just so cute and they'd be so cute as like a little desk buddy. I'm going to make some smaller ones as well as little key rings. Like the possibilities are endless, but how cute. They're just so fuzzy. And I've seen other YouTubers recommend brushing the yarn. I haven't brushed it, but apparently if you brush it with like a metal pronged brush, like for pet fur, it makes it even fluffier. So I also made a Della duck. Look how little it is. I wasn't sure if I was going to try and do the beak and the feet with the same type of yarn. Like for a moment I was thinking I might do it with blanket yarn, but I wanted it to be the same. And actually when I made the feet with the blanket yarn, even using like a 4mm sized hook, which was a nightmare, the feet were too big. So I just did it all with the same Feels Like Bliss yarn. And then I did worsted weight for the headband. Look how cute. I'm going to get another one of my Della ducks I'm working on to show you a size comparison. So this is using the exact same pattern. I don't have any finished Dellas to show you, but this is like a standard blanket yarn one that I make. And this is what Feels Like Bliss. It's like a little mini. So that's what I mean by like the amount of time put into the work, because this takes me just as long, if not longer, than making the bigger version. And I just don't know if that will be reciprocated in the price people are willing to pay for a smaller duck, even though I think they're so cute because they're so fuzzy. I also filmed a bit of me making this one and talking through what I was struggling with and what I was thinking as I made it, which I'll include in this video. So I've made a start on the Della duck using the Feels Like Bliss, and I didn't realize how little it was going to be. I'm also a bit concerned about how I'm going to embroider the eyes when I can't really see the stitches, but I might have to put safety eyes and then add like eyelashes and stuff, but this is what it's looking like so far. And if you're wondering what the thread's for, that's where I usually mark for eye placement. It's just after I do three increases, sorry. And I put in the last increase so I know roughly where to put the eyes. Okay, I'm about to start the wings, and one of the problems I'm having is it's just poking through the eye, so discoloring it a bit. This one's a bit better, but that's a bit of an issue. So I think I'm just going to try and trim it as best I can. So I've been embroidering the eyes, and I've actually found this easier in some ways because I'm not relying on counting stitches. As you can see where the red thread is, that's usually where I would put the eye, but I've just ignored that and gone by how it's looking. So yeah, I'm happy with it. It's a lot easier than I thought it would be. I've also used Feels Like Bliss in the orange colour for the beak, but I'm not going to be able to do that with the legs. I just don't see how that's going to go with this type of yarn. So I might have to use chenille. So I've got two colours that I'm going to try. Probably this one though, because it's a little bit thinner. And lastly, I made these little chickens. Look how cute they are. They're so funny. They're so like bally. This is also something I was thinking of making. If I don't make the bees, I might make these for my work colleagues. But look, you can make them into key rings as well, I think. And then I was wondering when I was making the pattern why the feet weren't lining up with the instructions. And I realized I'd sized down a hook and I'd made an even minier one. So they also have a grey that I didn't get, but I'm thinking that would be really good to make these in as well for like an Easter market. And I've got black that I can use, and there's also a cocoa colour, which is like a really light brown. They didn't have that stocked at Spotlight, and it is very hard to get a hold of online, so I don't know if I'm going to get that one. Look how cute they are. So now I'm just going to go through my tips for working with it. So if I've convinced you that you need this yarn in your life, some of the tips I have are when you're following a pattern, size down your hook, obviously, but you'll be surprised at how much you don't need to size it down. So for the Della ducks I usually make, I use a 7mm for the head and an 8mm for the body. For this one, I only size down to a 6mm for the head and then a 7mm for the body, which I think is quite, when I look at the yarn, it seems quite large. So you'll be surprised with the size of the hook that you can get away with this yarn, just because it is so fuzzy. And when trying this yarn for the first time, I would recommend making a pattern that you've made time and time again, because that way you know if it's kind of not looking right, you kind of have the muscle memory of the stitches and the pattern. I wouldn't launch straight into making like a new plushie or a new pattern that you've just gotten. So yeah, I would recommend, I did the Della duck just because that's something I've made so much. It's my most popular item in my Etsy shop. But I'd also would recommend making a bee potentially, because that's quite beginner friendly. Just make something small while you're getting used to the yarn and then move up to bigger projects. And then my last tip, which I've already mentioned, is you can brush it out and make it fuzzier. So that's all I have to say on that. That's my absolute honest review of Feels Like Bliss. It was not sponsored. I bought all this yarn myself, but I'm going to be making so many bees. Let me know if you want me to do like a bee challenge or a little chicken challenge. Like I love doing little challenges where I see how many I can make of one thing from like one ball of yarn or within a particular time frame. So if you've got any recommendations of what you'd like to see, let me know. As for the Della duck, I don't think I'm going to be making any more in the fuzzy yarn just because it took so long. And although I think it is incredibly cute, I just don't know if it's worth it. To be honest, I think they're also just as cute in blanket yarn and they're a lot bigger. So I probably won't, but we'll see. We'll see what response this gets. So thanks so much for joining me for this video. I hope you found it informative. And if you make anything using the Feels Like Bliss yarn, please let me know. Tag me, send me a direct message on Instagram, comment below with your social media accounts. I'd love to see what you're making. I'm looking for all the inspiration with this yarn now that I have so much of it. I was thinking I might make a whale next, like a little mini whale. But yeah,